Paolo are presenting about patient engagement and supporting to the network. But first of all, I just wanted to just really applaud you guys for having the foresight to see this opportunity of ERNs and being brave, stepping forward and tackling the assessment process, which was a bit tough and bureaucratic in some respects. But you got through that because your belief in collaborating and knowing the value of collaborating is what's driving this network forward. It's a strong network, and it's, for me, it's very exciting to see you guys here starting the conversation really to take the first steps as a network. I worked at a national level in the UK developing clinical networks, so I've seen the power and impact of what clinicians coming together and collaborating can do. And in 2 to 3 years, I saw a 20 to 30% increase in outcomes for patients just by you talking. The success of ERNs will be based on the strength of your collaboration as clinicians, but also your collaboration with patients and also with researchers. But I think you've had the luxury of a European call by the Commission to come together and to form as a network. The patient community haven't had that luxury. But we wanted to make sure that we optimise the patient voice in the networks. So EURORDIS worked across with the patient community at large to come together and organise how we can collaborate and input into these networks. So I'll give a brief overview of that approach. And then Paolo will very expertly go into telling you about the ePAG and the patient representatives in this network. You have fantastic patient representatives in this network. Use them, collaborate with them. You will be better for it. So the legislation is very clear. The delegated decision implementation decision, which is a wonderful bit of legislation, very short, 3 or 4 pages each, you can read. It says you have a legal obligation to be patient-centred and empower patients. So ERNs are created on that founding principle. EURORDIS engaged with the patient organisations across Europe to form 24 ePAGs, European Patient Advisory Groups, one aligned to each of the scopes of the 24 ERNs, to ensure that we optimise patient involvement into the networks, so it's not just sporadic across. We also made sure there was, I think with this network, there was strong patient involvement in the application process as well, but some of the other networks didn't. So we made sure that these ePAGs involved to shape and co-author the applications which were being submitted. And we now have patient representatives in the governance, in the network boards, in the clinical committees. ePAG's membership was open to members and non-members of EURORDIS, so it's about equality and solidarity. And as I said, they're aligned to the scope of each ERN. We currently have 150 patient reps sitting in the different clinical committees of the different ERNs. 24 ERNs, there's 150 disease-specific clinical networks underpinning them. And each one of those clinical committees, there's a patient rep sitting with a chair contributing to ensure that the needs of patients are aligned to the needs of clinicians. And most importantly, patient representatives in network boards, we are voting members. Now, with a large network like this, 2 or 3 votes won't really change the decision. But what it says to us is we are equal in our voice around the table. We continue to recruit patients to take part in the networks. So I drafted this slide. I won't go into the detail. It's for your information after. I went through the operation criteria for networks, which was part of the assessment manual and toolkit. And I looked to see what standards, what expectations you have got a part of the legislation to involve patients in. And as you can see, it's in everything. Patient involvement should be part of every activity you do. We think about patients, we all have different experiences of patient engagement. That varies. So we could be thinking we're doing this well but actually we could have a very narrow view on what patient involvement is. This shows the level and depth of patient involvement in this network. So on the network board, you can see that we should be part of identifying who should be part of the network. We should be part of the strategic planning of the network to say what scope of rare diseases this network should have in and expand, and also where these experts in different countries should be brought forward into the network. We should be active in monitoring the activities in the network and the outcomes, ensuring the voice of the patients is heard in all of the committees, to be also to input into the development of access protocols and information. So I won't go through this slide, but you can see if you're in the research group, you can see that you should be involving patients in priority setting for research, that you should be engaging them in the registries, recruitment into clinical trials. So have a look at this at your leisure. So patients come to be involved in these networks. We haven't had a whole career of developing our expertise. We've had a lifetime of living with our conditions. So we wanted to, and some of the patient representatives have been operating at the European level for a long time and very comfortable in sitting in large executive committees. Some, like me, are a bit nervous when you're faced with all the bright and the great across Europe for vascular conditions. It's a bit intimidating. So what we tried to do was we've developed an ePAG guide. This isn't just for patients, this is for you. And this helps you to understand what our role is around the table, how you can involve us. Because some of us might be quite quiet in saying what we think, and you have a role to also support us to contribute in that way. So this is a guide which is going to be shared around. Because it's supposed to be relevant to clinicians as well as patients, I'm really happy to share that with one or two of you who are really good at patient engagement, and you can give me some feedback, because if it's no good, it's not going to be used. So anyone who's interested in just taking part in a focus group on that, if you could just raise your hand. Great. So I've got 2. 3, okay, 4, 5. Great. I'm going to get your names at lunchtime. So you know. So we'll do more on that later. The other one is us as patients having the confidence and capacity to be active in these networks. EURORDIS have been developing a leadership program, so we do capacity building webinars linked to RD Action workshops, which have been happening and continue to happen. So if there's an RD workshop which all the clinical leads are in, we share that knowledge with the wider patient representatives, so they are as up to speed with what's happening with the ERNs in terms of the technical side of these networks. We're also the Commission has set up the working groups for which you've heard about this morning. So we don't want to be left out of that. So we're going to set up some transversal working groups as well. So one on education training. Any patient representative in each of the 24 ERNs, if they are active in the working group for that network on education training, we'll get them to come together. We'll get them to share their knowledge. They can say, oh, in vascular, and they're doing these really great things on YouTube at the moment, and we can cross-learn. So we're setting that up. We're doing peer coaching in terms of calls where we get everyone together. We've set up a mentoring program as well for people to see. We're piloting that as well. So this is to build our capacity and to learn from each other. We did a capacity building event in Budapest, it was earlier this year, where we all came together. This isn't all of us, but it's a good bunch. I think Jürgen, you're there, weren't you? And Paolo, you were there? No? I can't remember. No, you were at Vilnius. So we, EURORDIS have had the luxury of being part of all 24 network applications. So I've read 24 network applications, 70-page documents. I did a 4-page summary of each one to try and make it digestible to the patients. But what we did then was your section, your network application on research. I did a transversal analysis of what all 24 networks for research do. And then we did a session here sharing that overview of all that researching activities of what the networks will say they'll do. So we've got that for research, we've got that for education training, we've got that for outcomes and best practice guidelines. So you can have that as well, but it's open. But that was really good. We generated lots of discussion. And for us to sit in these network boards and committees and represent the wider patient voice, not just my disease area, we're setting up online communities so we can reach out to the wider community. You've got 70 patient reps organisations, 78. I mean, that's fantastic. We want more. You all know your patient organisations in your country. Tell us who they are. Let us engage with them. Let's connect them up as much as you're being connected up. And lastly, EURORDIS have a surveying tool called Rare Barometer Voices, and we're looking to develop this as a common tool across all ERNs. We have about 6,000 patient reps on a panel who can be asked questions at any time. We want to make that 25,000 patients living across Europe. So if this network wants, and all ERNs want to know about what social care problems or challenges or what are clinical issues for them, we can survey them. So then that information can go in and be the needs assessment side from a patient perspective to drive your strategic aims of your network and your planning. We also want that system to be able to, if a patient has been seen in one of your centres, that they can give feedback on how they felt involved in their care and did they get information. So that's what we're working on at the moment. So that's me. I'm sure I went over. I'm really sorry. So.
I was just curious to see 48 European continent countries. You mean that UK is not continent? Okay, apart the joke. Thank you. I am Paolo Federici. This is what I call my group. We have the 5 different patient organizations represented by the co-chairs. 4 of them are here: Carolina, Valentina, Jürgen, and Vanessa. Yes. No. I'm old. My memory is. And this is the group. Here is the name. Now I can find Natasha. Now I got it. This is the 6 people belonging to the management, the chairs, but in the group there are a lot of other people. We have Luisa, Cristina is not here, Ange is here, Romain, Francisca, Patrice. So we are quite a very nice group, and we meet very frequently. I should say every month we have these web calls, so we are becoming friends, also a part of this situation. What are our expectations? What do we want? Having access to qualified care for specific rare disease, finding effective therapies that can be an ambitious task in the rare diseases field, and have high levels of awareness of the disease to improve levels of the diagnosis, and patients' friendly delivery of information. Information is probably the most important point for us, for the patient, to know. Then you, the doctor, the clinician, will find the way to solve our problems. But for us, the most important are the information, to know what we have and where we can go. I have always this idea of the glass half empty or half full. Normally it's wine, but here I put water. I am absolutely optimistic, so I always see the half full size. In Vilnius, I spoke of the problems, of the negative side, of the half empty, that there were few experts, poor collaboration, scarcity of sound data, and lack of national protocols. But this was before Vilnius. Now, with the development of the ERN, we have bypassed advanced of this. Now there are a lot of expert people, there is a strong collaboration, there are a lot of data, and we are trying to put together with this IT development, and I can read from here, lack of local protocols has been developed. Now for me I can read, but it's for you. And the positive, the half full, is that we are meeting regularly. We have the meeting with the physician in the different working group, and the patient representative are networking within the broad ePAG members community. And we have the possibility to define our own task and priorities. And what we expect? We expect to contribute to the research and setting the patient priority. We want to highlight the difficulties in access to care, especially for the rare disease is more difficult. Sometimes you need years before you can find out what kind of rare disease you have. So this is big difficulties for us. And we are helping to developing the guidelines that are inclusive of the patient perception and the preference. And information, this, as I already said, is probably the most important point. And then we are linking patient advocacy groups to potential new HPs interested in focus on our condition. So these are our expected outcomes. But what we have done in this 1 year time of cooperation of development, we have Valentina, who has was asked to develop the first draft of the patient pathway for HTAD. We have Claudia Crocione, is the only one missing of our group, but she broke one leg, so she couldn't make the trip to Paris. And she is in the transversal working group on registries. Then we have Romain, who is a chair of the working group on ethics. Then we have Natasha Asies, which is with a new rare disease, which has been joined to the group, so is the working group representative. And then Christina and Karen has attended the ISS summer school or registry, so they have developed their knowledge. And then we are contributing to the very big project of our friend Professor Alessandro Pini for the special app he will talk about later, which is developing a lot. And what are our goals for the 2018? We need to be represented in all the transversal group. Now we are not in all of them. Being recognized as serious stakeholders, and this I think is already approved. Activating more patient organization to join, because as we said, we have 78 patient organization, but probably there are more, so we need to look to find. It's difficult to find a rare disease, but it's also difficult to find a patient organization linked to the rare disease, and trying to stimulating the research. I'm sure I kept less than 10 minutes. Thank you.
Thank you. You can stay here because we may have some questions for you and for Matt. I think patients are part of all the transversal working groups, actually.
Matt is in charge of answering the question.
Matt, we are willing to share the documents that you did during the night with all the transversal view of the different aspects of the ERNs. So if you can send this to me or to us, that will be fine. Any comments, remarks? Claire?
So, I just had a question for Matt about the survey pool of the 6,000.
Yeah, use the microphone.
Of the 6,000.
It's not working?
Of the 6,000.
You have to press it a long time. Press it a long time because nobody's going to hear you. No? So take mine.
It's a simple question. As somebody who conducts lots of surveys of patients, we are very limited to English speakers. And what languages are the surveys available in, and what is the tool for the translation? Is that happening automatically, or is that something that you, if we provided you with a survey in one language, would you then translate into all of the others?
The survey is currently, I think, in 24 languages. So we have it to cover most countries. We need to agree on, we need to develop it in terms of how we can use it within the ERNs and across ERNs. You know, multi-system rare diseases, you've taken a specialty approach, you know, rare metabolic, rare bone. You know, patients don't fit comfortably in those groups. So having a common tool across all ERNs, so ESLOS-DANLOS, I think, covers 5 networks. So we want to be able to have the tool to be able to be a survey tool which can cut across the different ERNs, and we can be able to look at what the different needs are. So we need to develop it further, but we've got a platform in place, and I think it can be adjusted.
First. Hello to everybody, and thanks to the speakers. Paolo, this is a question. As Spain has a special problem because we have HCPs and we have associations, but we are not formally included in the ERN. So I am, as a ePAG, a representative of HHT, but I was contacted 2 days ago by 2 doctors from lymphedema from La Paz, Madrid, who wanted to be in this group, Basque ERN, and you have one recent, you have mentioned Natasha as the recent representative of lymphedema group in the ePAG. The question is, how can those doctors representing the patients, because otherwise it's difficult to get into, be included in this ePAG group?
I think it's a question for you, not really for me.
So the question is a patient, can a doctor represent a patient? Yes?
2 doctors, 1 pediatrician.
2 doctors can represent 1 patient? Is that the question?
As I am here now...
So there is a problem with Spain. I think to go with what the patient organization can do. First, it's clear for me that there should be some expert center in Spain. So your action as patient is to try to have a political effect and to have pressure so that there is a recognition of the expert centers in Spain by the government, because that was blocked. Actually, in France, the Plan Maladies Rares was the result of the action of the patients, and we heard that the European plan is also the result of the patient work. So you should do that in Spain. And Catalonia also.
To have
but she wants to be inclusive.
To have the approval of new medicine for the ERN in Spain.
No, the problem is really to be aware of what is happening here in HHT, in vascular disease. Then I went through the ePAG and be connected with you. But there are other vascular groups that are not represented because they are not so closely related with patients or to research, as in my case. But how can they be here as I am? I mean, they can volunteer to be ePAG representatives, because you told to speak with the politicians. I have been sitting in the Ministry of Health, I am a research for 5 times. They don't understand anything because they are bureaucrats.
6 times.
Bureaucrats. And also I know that the Federation of Rare Diseases in Spain has been sitting for 5 years. At the moment, there is no go-through unless the government changes. So
it will change.
Well, okay.
The pressure is increasing, so you will win. But
Yeah,
you don't stop the pressure.
how-
And that's the way it goes, so you have to do with that.
Yeah, but could these doctors become representative
No.
of patients?
In my view, no. I
Okay.
think doctors are not patients.
Okay.
And it should not be. It's not the same thing. Otherwise, I mean, I am representative of the patients. I'm taking care of patients. I'm losing a lot of time with the patients, but I am not a patient. I don't feel like I'm a patient. So I think one place is one place, and the patient place is the patient's place, and the doctor's place is the doctor's place. And we cannot mix that. Otherwise, your reality in the group is not even why. Why should you be there if we can represent you?
Okay.
But if they are doctor specializing in some rare disease,
so we
their
are.
center can apply to become one of the center.
Yeah, but that's a problem of recognizing the expert
Yes,
center.
yes,
So that's a
it's
political
the
issue that
center.
I was alluding to. And so then you make the pressure, we make the pressure, and the ERN coordinator group is making the pressure, and the board of member states, Muriel can say that this is true, probably, so that there is some more countries which can be recognized with expert centers. So the pressure is there. You should go 6 times, 7 times, 10 times. Okay. And I just wanted to add one thing before the end of this session for the patient. I think we need from the patient to tell us who are the experts in the countries where there are not expert centers. Because when the aim of the new call will be to try to increase the number of countries which are involved in the ERNs, so that's to promote the expertise in the new countries. And so your role here is important because we may not know these people, and through your connection we may find some others. So we hope your help for that.
So in terms of membership, EURORDIS is advocating quite heavily that each country is represented in each ERN. So Spain, in terms of the first call, we had a very enthusiastic response from Italy, with 20% of centres going in from the whole of the 900 coming from Italy, whereas Spain was a bit more cautious in their approach for the first call. So Spain is a good country, it's got a lot of expertise. We didn't see as many people come forward like we did from the UK or from Italy or Spain, Germany or France. But we hope that this time it will be increased and Spain should be represented in more of the networks. We wrote a letter to the European Commission last week asking that the next call is focused and prioritised on new members being coming from countries which aren't members of networks currently. So that was tabled earlier this week.
I have 2 short questions for ePAG, which also concern the VASCERN and all the ERNs. The first one is the industry. To what extent and under which condition ePAG would accept that big pharmas or smaller biotech or any kind of industry, notably the ITC industry, support one ERN? And this is the first question, and I think ePAG has to think about it and to develop some recommendation with that regard, because sooner or later, maybe the ERN will seek for this kind of funds as well, and a research project in cooperation with private partner. This is the first question. And the third question is the generalization of Internet of Things and smart application via smartphones, etc. Do you think that some patient will be left apart if these tools are generalized?
I'll answer the first question about industry. So the interaction between industry and ERNs has yet to be defined. It's clear by the legislation that ERNs need to engage with industry for research and clinical trials. The ERNs have kept their distance from collaborating with industry until the code of conduct is being developed by the ethics working group, which is led by Nicoline from Gentauris. So that ethical or that code of conduct isn't there just for the clinicians. It's for the researchers in the network, it's for the patients who work in the network or who are active in the network. So we need to, and I've asked Nicoline that we should have a say and contribute in drafting that from a patient perspective, not be given something at the end of the day as a finished article. So we're waiting for feedback from the ethics group whether we as a patient representatives can be active in shaping that. But it should cover us.
Thank you. We had a meeting with Nicoline, because I'm a patient representative and I'm also a lawyer. Nicoline asked me to join them in their intergroup ERN to prepare the document about conflict of interest, and we had a lot of exchange and discussion extensively. And okay, the document is, we are trying to work on it, and there is at least one representative of patient in the group, and the document will not be finished and approved before it's really shared and discussed amongst the other representatives.